So the artist I chose was Adela Andea. I
Yes.
think that's how I pronounce it.
Yeah, she's
I'm-
from Romania.
Yeah. And her artwork is a lot based on sort of like these balls of light in a sense. It almost looks like they're like wires sort of like wrapped around into like a big white ball, and then like parts of it are lit up and parts of it are not lit up. And then those sort of like stretch out into each other with like different balls like left and right. And like, so it's like a hanging sort of like almost like a chandelier. And I decided to mix that with Valorant, which is like a game that I play a lot now. And recently they released a new character that's very cosmic based. I was like, hey, I can combine this character with this artist, and I think it's going to work out pretty well. So that's my choice. Sort of like this astral being mixed in with Andea's sort of work. So for the base layer on the canvas, I decided to sort of make something very cosmic looking, fitting with the color scheme of the agent. So I decided to keep it sort of like this dark purple, sort of blackish and magenta hues. And then I just sort of like I put like big dollops of paint onto the canvas, and I sort of like mix them together with a paintbrush like that. And then I did like some dry mixing as well, just sort of remove some of the Iranian like sort of stroke lines on it. That's how I did like the background to make it sort of like this nebula sort of look. You can't see behind all the cardboard, but there is like a sort of gradient between this sort of darker left side and the lighter right side. And then over that, I added to some like some cosmic debris sort of stuff. We have like comets going left and right, some stars. Once the lights turn off, you'll see that I did do some stuff with like the fairy lights as extra stars on the left side, where it's more dense and darker. And I also added some of the sort of light balls, but painted on, just to like sort of give contrast to the actual 3D balls that I made. And for the sort of the main part, which is the character, the agent, I unfortunately decided to do this all with cardboard relief, which I think was kind of a mistake now I look at it, since cutting cardboard, to be precise, is very difficult, as I found out using the same X-Acto blade for the entire thing. So it isn't as detailed as I would hope it is, but I did get for the most part, the general shape through. And then that's sort of like the character. I split it up into different sections so I can put the lights under it, and I'll talk about the lights now. So I wanted to make sort of an outline of the character with the lights, which is why I decided to put the cardboard on the like sort of relief. I've had a lot of different ideas for planning out how the lights would work, but I chose to sort of mount it under it, facing the light sort of facing towards the paper, to sort of get it to reflect off the paper a little bit. There are some parts that I don't think really went through too well, just because I was using LED strips, and because those were like the cheapest option that I can get versus like tube lighting or anything like that. So there's some parts that don't go through as well. I'm gonna turn on both. I was hoping for a more sort of like diffusion going across the outline of the silhouette of the character. I don't think it came out too well, just because given the fact that I didn't have enough lights for this. So I was hoping like this, like every single edge is sort of like a sort of purple glow on the sides. On it, I mean, I said it didn't come out too well. Where was I going with this? Okay, that's the light part, I guess. I did have some sort of like concentric circle idea, and you can see it on like the left side right here. Unfortunately, I could not get like a big enough. I originally had an idea to have like a massive circle based on this one going around and out the left side, but I couldn't figure out a way to keep it actually circular shaped, so I kind of scrapped the idea, also given the fact that I don't have enough lights for this. So I sacrificed some of that to fit in with the rest of it. For the final parts, she does have like this sort of like sort of fabric thing on her waist, so I used like some satin ribbon and like fabric sort of material to make that effect. Of course, there's the massive like centerpiece right here, and I sort of just like I looked at some of Andea's art, and I almost mimicked it in some sense, but I didn't because I don't have like the materials that she had. So I wrapped up an aluminum ball with yellow cellophane, and I taped that all together, and I wrapped it up with just like every light. So like the biggest issue with this piece was making the lights sort of like not have to just go across the canvas and look ugly like that. So I sort of centered them all around, going around this ball and then wrapping around to all the edges. where I could just have the wire sort of go back and behind the piece where it wouldn't be seen as much. So by doing that, I could just wrap it around in this center ball, so it could just be like sort of central hub for all the lights to move around wherever they need to go. And I guess for the logo, I just decided to use the game logo. I wrapped up a piece of a clear folder, which is like sort of like translucent, and then I wrapped it with red cellophane, and then I put lights under it, and then I painted over it. Originally, I was going to use a piece of acrylic for this, but I found out that the acrylic pieces that I have were very thick, and I could not cut it to that small size. So I just took one of my old tool folders, and then I improvised with that.
Thank you.
I think that's everything. Not too sure.
Did a really nice job describing that. This is beautiful. I think it's amazing listening to you and listening to how the decisions and the function of the lighting and so forth. So in some ways led the way of how things are constructed and how things are layered. I appreciate that you're constructing things. Like I like that you actually had to construct that logo in that way. I actually think it's better that way. You mentioned that the lighting wasn't exactly how you wanted it as far as diffusion and so forth, but it's one of those things with like making big art pieces like this. It's like every piece that I make as well. It's like things are never exactly the way you think they're going to be, right? It's kind of a negotiation between the piece and the world and yourself, and it ends up being something a little bit different than you always planned. But I think you should be really happy with this. I love the way the lighting is. I think that like the way you've done it, it's happening in a multitude of ways, right? So it's happening differently as far as opacities and diffusion with the logo, with the ball, with behind the figure itself, and then also with these kind of linear patterns on the left here. Where did you get this material, this one right here?
I think I just looked up silver mesh Amazon.
And then
Amazon?
I
found that, yeah.
Yeah.
Came in like a 20-yard area, and then I just like cut out like a tiny piece of it.
A part of this assignment, of course, is gathering mixed media supplies, right? And gathering mixed media supplies that are unique, right?
Yeah.
Something that you didn't just get out of your junk drawer, but you actually sought out and you sort of actually like. Doesn't necessarily matter like how you got it and how much it was or anything, but it's like how unique it is. Like how does it, especially with this piece, and you have a whole lighting situation that's happening here. So I noticed that you were thinking about metallic items quite a bit as well. I love talking about how you talked about that ball, and the inner core was what, like aluminum or like a tin foil ball or something.
Yeah, tin foil ball, and
then wrapped into what, yellow cellophane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then with the lights, and then some what are they called, pipe cleaners.
Yeah. I mean, this just. You broke it down. I mean, you researched Adela Andia and you remade this piece anew with heavy influence, but also with your own aesthetic. It's quite an undertaking. Let's hear from the class.
I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I love the way. I literally don't know how you could have done it any differently and made it better, because I think it's exceptional. I would hang this piece in my room. It's so cool. It like almost even reminds me of like Aang when he's like in Avatar.
Oh yeah, like
when,
with the guru, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when there's like exactly. I really love it. Exceptional work.
Thanks, Eli. Let's hear from everyone else.
Might be a bit too heavy to hang up though.
I love the eyes. They're just like no matter where you go, it feels like they're following you and you're just like staring.
Oh yeah.
I just love that. Also, if you don't mind me asking, how long did it take you to like set up all the wiring and stuff?
Oh, 8 hours yesterday. I just like after work, I was like, I've got like a little bit of time. I can set this up, and then I just realized it was midnight. So yeah, the wiring, everything is hot glued to the back because I want to kind of reuse the lights maybe sometime, or just keep them on. I kind of forgot that they have built-in sticky pads in the back, and dumb mistake by me, because that would have saved me a lot of extra time for the LED lights. The fairy lights were actually relatively easy, just since they were so much more flexible. Like the LED lights are just like copper wire, right? You can spin them whatever the way you want. But like the LED strip lights, those are just like on a piece of plastic essentially, and it's just here. They're meant to be like put up in like corners, right? And then it's like it doesn't bend too much, so that was the hard part, making those LED lights, trying to stretch around the entire piece.
we've talked so much about mixed media and light, but I really appreciate the painting that you did as well. You know, and I think it's important to talk about that gradient that you had. I mean, I saw it; it was gorgeous when you were making it, and I just think it's important that you, as far as you went out to really be kind of interesting and wild with your mixed media supplies, you definitely made sure to have that grounding and some really nice mixture of paint. And it goes along with the overall palette. Any last thoughts or any enhancements for this piece that could even make it better?
I don't have an enhancement yet, but I do like the way you centered the ball in the middle. To me, it's like that person's heart's just coming out.
Absolutely.
I can't remember what the brand was, but if it has anything to do with somebody having a big heart and being helpful, that really displayed it well.
Yeah, oh yeah, I put it like sort of there. She like makes stars and then she throws them around the map to do specific things. So I like had her like sort of like conjuring up a star within her hands.
Okay. That makes more sense, but really good.
It should be noted that like a part of this project was for you to be influenced by artists that you probably did not know about it from otherwise, right? And you know, these artists are, some of them are Texas artists like we have here. You know, some of them are really famous national and international artists, but a lot of them are not famous at all, right? And they're very much local, and they're kind of, you know, important Texas artists. So this is one of those. Any last comments?
I really like how it works both in the dark and in the light. I think the gradient work that you had with the paint is really nice. And the like gold circles and all that looks really cool in the light. And then when you turn off the light and you turn on all this, I was like, wow, because I didn't expect it to like have a whole nother side to it. So I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, it really is cool. Light is wonderful. I mean, I love light. I love luminosity in art, and also think that the painting that you did just looks gorgeous underneath. So, old school and new school meeting together. All right, great work.